Welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond, and I am so excited to be here with a good friend of mine, Bob Kelly, also known as Brother Francis. Bob, really good to be here with you, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to see that you're doing well and doing a great job with on deck.
I appreciate that. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of reward too. First, before we get started with any of the baseball conversation that we're going to talk, I want to tell people kind of who you are if they haven't seen the original interview I did with you, gosh, a couple years ago now. But if they haven't seen that, what do they need to know about you?
Well, I guess they need to know about my love for baseball. I mean, when I talk baseball around Kennesaw with people, and I told them the first game I went to, Joe DiMaggio was the center fielder for the Yankees, and it just went from there. I was a Yankee fan because I was born in New York. I became a Braves fan because I we moved to my family moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, and that's where the Braves uh, had their spring training camp. And so I became a Braves fan through spring training, and then after I got married, moved to Atlanta, and it was perfect. And here was Fulton County's new stadium, 5 years old when no, I guess it was six when I moved here, and I just watched it and everything. My In school, I was studying hotel restaurant management. I wanted to get into hospitality, so a good friend who's like my brother, Rick Sherm, said, "Hey Bob, what what about opening up a little pub?" And I said, "Hey, great idea." He said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." There was a company here in Atlanta called Far West Services. So I said to Rick, "Go to work for them for 1 year, and in that time we'll put all our plans together, and you'll learn the back of the restaurant business." And it was a perfect match, as we were such great friends that once we started and built it, and we built it, we ran out of money as we were getting to the ceiling. So we both made a decision, hey, we'll just paint the ceiling. So I firmly believe that we were the first restaurant, pub, bar that didn't have a drop ceiling. And you go into most of them now, and they have that because they realize, the sprinklers will work without having coverage. So we, being a big Braves fan, the name of our place was the Pew and Brew. Our logo was Brother Dominic, the monk for Xerox on the Xerox commercial, Brother Dominic. So we sent them a note, and they sent us a cutout of Brother Dominic about 6 feet 2 inches tall, which we placed over the kitchen window and everything. Uh, we took a bus ride, load about 38 people down to Fulton Stadium, and I wore a monk's outfit that we had gotten, and I was going to wear this on special occasion. Well, we're playing the Big Red Machine, and we started the season strong. We were 0-7 coming home from a road trip. So we're sitting there, and it's
Sounds
just,
familiar.
yeah, sounds familiar. I can't believe it this year, though. So I just had an inkling in the seventh inning. We're down 3-0, and I said to Rick, I said, heck, I'm going to get on the dugout and try to get these uh, 11,000 fans that we have opening night fired up. So I got on the dugout, and as I was cheering, Chris Chambliss was coming up. We had just picked him up over the winter as a free agent, and he had a heck of a uh, stint with the Yankees. So Chris comes up, left-hand batter, boom, he knocks it right over the center field wall, and the birth of Brother Francis. But I was asked by security not to do that anymore. So, in fact, they took me upstairs. They were getting ready to put me in jail or send me. And I said, "What are you sending me to jail for? What did I do wrong?" he, he said, "You're starting a riot." I said, "Starting a riot?" So thank God, Walt Minshew was the PR guy. He came down and saved me and said, "Okay, we'll meet tomorrow morning at 10:30." And I went back in my seat, and I did it again in the ninth inning and got my hand spanked. And then the next day, I went to meet with Wayne, and I've got the dollar bill that I got from them for going to work, and I've got the signed contract still hanging on my wall. That if in the event that I got hurt, I would not. The Atlanta Braves weren't liable, and I said sure. So it went on from there for 4.5 years of Brother Francis and the Braves.
So that's the basic history, right? But beyond the spectacle of Brother Francis, deep down you're just a baseball fan. I think we both can admit that. You can look behind you how many baseballs you have and collection you have, and just how much you cared about the Braves back in the, I guess, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, even today.
Right.
We've lost some legends over the past few months. Some that are personal to me, some that are personal just the entire Braves country. Phil Niekro specifically, I know meant a lot to you. He meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a Phil Niekro memory, real quick?
Well, yeah, I have a great Phil Niekro memory. He gave me a ball the second night after the game. He had asked one of the security, and he told him, "Tell Bob to meet me in the picnic area." They had an area back there that they had 8 tables and 8 people. They got about 64 to 75 people in that area. So after the game, I waited, and Phil came up from the. Hang on, I'm going to get it and show you. Where is? Oh God. Well, I'm not gonna. And he gave me a baseball, and it said, "To Brother Francis, thanks for the help, Phil Niekro." And we became, not great friends, but we became friends. And he did a couple of my golf tournaments with me, and brought out some. He brought out Mike Smith. Philly was coming into town to start a series. He brought him with him, and Gene Conley. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a pitcher with the Phillies. But he was, at the time, he was a 2-sport. Gene also played basketball because he at Notre Dame he was a basketball player and a pitcher. So Conley came with him, and so he helped me with that, and we did it for Spina Bifida, who he was involved with at the time, and that was his charity that he was working with. So Phil was just a very, very, very nice person. He was, very sociable, and he liked people, and he liked kids. And he had, I think he had 2 sons and a daughter. I think he had 3 children. I'm not sure. Good people, he and Nancy.
That's a really good story. Phil had a way of just relating to people that a lot of players these days struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about baseball today. The reason we're doing this, I guess, is I did a video last week talking about automatic replay
Mm-hmm.
and the way MLB's system is broken.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all can admit that at least one time, at least probably significantly more, but at least once, all 30 teams have been affected by automatic replay in a negative way. That was obviously the wrong call.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to the Braves last week. I did a video on it. It garnered a lot of attention, and you wanted to kind of come on and talk about that. And just, I guess I just really want to know what your thoughts on automatic replay are.
Well, my thoughts are very easy. Get rid of it. I think it's a waste of time, and since they've been doing it as long as they have, and they still can't get it right, they need to stop it. Let the umpire makes, like Mr. Doubleday wrote in the book, be the way that it's done. Everybody says, "Oh, well, we got electronics, we got all this stuff." Well, we have electronics, but they're not right. They can't make 100% the right decision. Now, I'll give them 5% with the system, so they can't get 95% right.
They're barely struggling getting 50.
Well, they are, but I'm trying to be nice. I'm a guest on your show, but it's not needed in baseball. Okay, I'm not going to get into the other teams, NFL and NBA, but baseball is a game that is played on the field, not in the locker room or guy. 2 teams playing in Atlanta. Some guy up in New York is making a decision. Well, he made a bad decision. even 50% of the guys that were drinking beer that night knew that he never touched home plate, you know. And I was sitting in my chair, and I said to Jane as the play was going on, I said his foot was above home plate.
I
Okay,
called it out I called it out too live. Yeah.
live, I could see it, you know. Plus, if the umpire would have been smart, he would have looked to see if there was any dirt on the plate, because if his foot was down, he would have had to drag dirt over the plate. There was no evidence. The plate was as clean as when we got the hit, you know. So they need to get rid of, you know, they're talking about shorter ball games, and they're doing the 7 inning thing on double headers. Now you got athletes that 50 years ago could go out in a July day and play 9 innings, you know, and they say that, well, they want to speed it up. Well, speed it up 2 ways: get rid of the video and do more commercials in the double slot. Now the game on half of it and an advertisement on the half of it while
Yeah.
the pitcher's warming up and everything. So that way you don't have to go away for 2 or 3 minutes. Boom. When the pitcher's ready to go, you can leave one up for a while, but get on there, you know. And they're doing some with the that airline that flies out of here, but
Yeah.
I think I don't think it was Eastern, I think it was, but you know, so there's but they don't go to the fans. That's the problem. We got a commissioner right now that doesn't communicate with the fans. Okay, he could put on this year's ballot. Okay, for All Stars. Do you want to continue with the instant replay? Okay, they'll get more votes than they've ever gotten in the history of voting for if they do that. Keep the fans involved. And I say that it's even tougher for kids and dads to get autographs in spring training than when I used to take Scott down. Uh, I was down there all 4 years. I was doing Brother Francis. I went down there. Well, my mom still lived down there, so we had a place. But they're just making these decisions. What's he trying to do? Ruin arms is one thing, but the other thing he's going to do, he's trying to make that 100-mile-an-hour fastball down to 97, 98. And that's not the commissioner's job.
Mm-mm.
He's not supposed bigger bases. Come on. They don't make bigger bases for Little League. Okay. The infield can't get off the dirt. You know, that's like telling the NFL on a goal line stand, you have to have 4 backs at least 10 yards off the line. You know, so it's really wrong. Go ahead, Tyler. I'm sorry.
I have a lot of problems with a lot of the choices they've made. The only thing the thing that really irritates me, I think the most, besides the All-Star game, which is an entirely different subject, but the rule that aggravates me the most has got to be the extra inning rule. I just think it's a really cheap way to end a game. Not to say it's not final. Both teams have the same opportunity, and that's fine. I don't disagree with that. I just think it's a very hokey way to end it. And I wanted your thoughts on that too.
I agree with you 100%. They don't do it in Little League. They don't do it in high school baseball. They don't do it in college. Okay. Now, college does play 7 inning on Sunday or whichever day they play that doubleheader. The first game, 7 innings, second game, but that's college. Those are college kids. Okay. And I was involved with travel ball in East Cobb for 20 plus years, and perfect game in they call it the California rule. Somebody out in California said, let's try this. Well, it changes the whole way defensively you play with they've got no outs and a guy on second base. Okay. Now, it does do one thing that I like. It brings small ball back into the game.
It does.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. So now he's going to try to lay down a bunt and get that guy over to third. And then they've got 2 batters to get him in. And it's kid stuff.
Yeah.
And again, put that on the ballot and see how many people like it.
I would add that I think it's very unfair that, I mean, the pitcher's charged with a loss even though he doesn't have an earned run. I mean, what what is that? The commissioner has made it a point like you said, to ostracize the fans in a lot of ways. And I think, honestly, I mean, what do you think is baseball's best option?
Best option, go back to Mr. Doubleday's rule book and leave it alone. Play baseball the way it was in 1920 and 1940. Okay. And I'm a firm believer, get rid of the DH. The only thing the DH is good for is for a guy who most likely is going to go into the Hall of Fame anyhow. To have
Yeah.
2 more years, all he has to do is swing the bat and then sit on his can. You know?
I'll
Heck,
tell you, I've swayed on that a little bit. I used to be just like you, but from a personal standpoint, as a Braves guy, I would not mind having Marcell Ozuna step out of left field and be a DH. Just
mhm,
on a personal, that's the Braves from a baseball standpoint. I completely agree with you on the grand scale.
right.
But if it works out for the Braves, if we all know Marcell Ozuna struggles in left field, but I think if it really came down to making a decision, I would probably get rid of the DH. I do agree that it's good for older players. It's a good way to keep those guys around. I think David Ortiz is a prime example. Edgar Martinez is a prime example. Guys like that are good enough to be in the Hall of Fame that just you want to keep them around. I think Pujols would be better suited in that way. You get what I'm saying. I just the DH is to me, as much as I don't like it from a purist standpoint, I do like it in the fact that that is one change that I think would be profitable and would make fans a little bit more interested in the offense. But ultimately, it changes the game in a drastic way, and
Mhm,
I don't like that.
right. And okay, but here's where I love baseball. Baseball is a strategy game.
Hmm.
Okay. And I'm a big Coach Dicker fan. I think he's since Cox. I really love the guy. I've met him, shook hands, and everything. But he made a mistake the other night. Okay, why did he not take Ozuna out that inning, put Incente in left field? Okay, and I know why he didn't do it because he wanted that bat to be in the game if they got back to him. Well, it's sort of like you know you got to win the first one before you can worry about the second one. He should have had Incenti out there, and boom, that guy would have been out. Now we know that he was out anyhow.
Yeah.
That Ozuna did make a decent throw, but he shouldn't have been there. I mean, and I know that Sickner has a reason he didn't do it. Just like another example, our DH that's hitting home runs, not our our pinch hitter, the kid
Oh,
from
Pablo.
Pablo. Just like the other day, he got walked. Okay, so now we got a guy on first.
I know pinch runner.
Right. Why didn't he bring? He had two guys. He had that number 23, that kid we signed since the season started, and he had Incenti on the bench there. What happens? Wemble around second base like he's going to third base, and he all of a sudden he knew he couldn't make third. Well, he didn't get back to second because he didn't. A speedy guy Incenti would have been at third base, and that's why I love baseball because there and I was at a luncheon with Tommy Lasorda many years ago, and afterwards he came over to our table because the coach of the Hawks at the time was Mike. What was Mike's name? Well, he was good friends with Lasorda, but Lasorda said the only difference between you and I is I make the first call, you make the second call, and the first call is the one that counts. So I've always thought that was a good point for a guy like me. That's who he was talking to. It's easy to say what Snicker should
Yeah.
have done, but I wasn't in the dugout. I was sitting in the stands. So, that's just that's again why I love the game, Tyler. It's so controversial. It's got so many things that go on. It's unreal.
Well, I hate to change the subject, but I think we need to talk about something that really was controversial in the sense of the All Star game. I did a video on it. Didn't really get political. Um,
You did a good job. I saw that recording.
I appreciate that. But what are your thoughts just in general? Because I think everybody has an opinion on it. I think rightfully so. Everybody should have an opinion on it. What are your thoughts on it just to, with the commissioner making that decision, and of course the Braves losing that game.
It's a sad situation. You know, politics needs to be politics and stay out of the sports world. You know, and it's just like Delta and Home Depot and those that got involved in Coke. It's in a sense it's hurting them. But you took business away from a lot of the people that you were claiming weren't getting treated right in Atlanta. Okay. And I'm talking about the employees at the Braves thing. I'm talking about employees that would have been selling shirts and things of that nature. You made a decision that you had no right to make to take a game away from Atlanta. They had patches on their arm. They were all selling all-star stuff in the shop, in the Brave shop and everything. And you just took it away from them. And then they take it up to Colorado, and that's a whole nother story that you have to be careful about. And since I'm your guest, I have to be careful about, you know, and I feel bad for the guys. I feel bad for Freeman and whole of baseball, but we have 4 guys that no doubt are going to be on the All-Star game, you know, and now instead of playing in Atlanta, it's out in Colorado, you know, so it was a huge mistake, and I hope they.
Well, what I had said about it, my biggest issue is the fact that they didn't seem to even consult with Atlanta, because I think that's right, because the Braves had nothing to do with any of it. And, they didn't do anything wrong. And the Braves already seem to be in the spotlight a lot of times, I guess, politically, with the tomahawk chop.
I'm glad the fans are still doing it.
I was about to ask, you've been a Brave fan a long time. You've seen that tomahawk chop. You saw probably the origination of it. What are your thoughts?
I feel bad that Brother Francis didn't invent it. I mean, I wouldn't, and I knew about it because Florida State, where I came from, Florida State is where it came from, and Dion. But, once again, that's a political. One guy says, I think it's shameful that they do that. Chief Nakahoma loved being part of the Braves and did a great job for them. But to make people change their hats and change their jerseys, again, it's unfortunate. It's all political. Look at the Seminoles. They don't have to change because the Indians that are Seminoles in Florida, they're proud that they're the Seminoles. Yeah. And everything.
Well, Nakahoma, I can speak for him, I think. Nakahoma's a friend of mine, very good friend of mine. And, he pretty much said that Seminoles are not offensive. The Indians are not offensive. The Braves are not offensive. The only one that was offensive was the Redskins, because it is a derogatory term and things like that. He said that is the only one that I have an issue with. Other than that, he said the Braves honor us. The Warriors honor us. The Seminoles honor us. I have no problem with any of those. And, I think public opinion has become such a prevalent thing in today's society. And that's a conversation for another day on another podcast. But I do think the fact that it's integrating baseball is making the fans feel like they don't belong in a lot of ways. What are some things that you think Major League Baseball could do to divert that, to make fans feel like they belong again? Because I've seen footage. I've never been there, but I've seen footage of old Fulton County Stadium and how close fans seem to be to the game, and how it just seems like it's become so, not to say bland, but so separated from fans. What would you do to change that?
I'm glad you brought that up. But what you did say, Fulton County Stadium was, as I mentioned earlier, the picnic area, because the picnic area went right up to the dugout, the first base dugout, all the way down to where their bullpens were. So a lot of fans that were in the picnic area shot the breeze with the bullpen pitchers during the game.
Yeah.
And that was good. But I'm glad you brought this up, because something that needed to happen, and it needs to happen more. What Freddie Freeman did for that young man who caught the fly ball or got it given to him, well, he caught it, and then his dad and him were talking, and he ran over, and there was another child with the number 5 on his back, Freeman. He gave that kid the ball and gave up a home run ball. Well, first of all, there you see some great parenting, some great sportsmanship, which we sometimes don't see a lot of in major league sports. So what Freddie did is Freddie saw the instant replay on TV, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to do something for that young man." So he told on Sunday, he told security, because they were at that game too, to bring he and his dad down. And I didn't realize that he and Bryce Harper are such good buddies, but they are. And he gave that kid a baseball signed by Freddie with their number on it and signed by Bryce with his number on it. That kid was sitting there with 2 future Hall of Famers in his hand. And look what they did. They took time out of their busy life before the game that they can't sign autographs or talk to the fans. And they did it. They gave it to that young man. I hope he's got it sealed, signed, and taken care of right now, because someday that might put his kids through college, that baseball.
Well, I'll tell you,
go ahead, Tyler.
I'll tell you that, when I was a kid, there were a lot of players that would walk by and not say a word, because I was that kid standing on the side by first base dugout, trying to get an autograph from, X, Y, and Z. And a lot of those guys never came by. But in recent years, I've been down there a time or two, and I've seen players stop and talk to kids, and especially on the Braves. They've done a very good job with the Braves. Freddie Freeman, I'll tell you a quick Freddie Freeman story. I told this, I didn't tell it last night, but I showed the baseball last night on my show. Freddie Freeman, when we went to spring training, there was about 30 people standing there watching him do fielding practice. And once he got done, everybody just thought he was going to walk off and not say anything, which he very easily could have done, and there would have been no media press about it, nothing. But this little 4-year-old kid said, "Mr. Freeman, will you sign my baseball?" And he signed for every last one of us. And, that says a lot about him. I think more players could learn from that. And a lot of the Braves have been really good about it. Ozzie Albies has been really good about it there. Ronald Acuna signs just about every day, I think. So when you have players like that do that, they make themselves more liked. Just another quick story. Johnny Venters, just real quick. Johnny Venters, when I was about 11 years old, who was actually a really top guy for the Braves at that time, came and he was signing autographs, and he said, "Oh, I'll get you guys in a few minutes," and walked away. And I was smart enough at that time to go, "Yeah, right, you're not coming back." Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, he came walking back out there and signed for anybody that wanted it. And I think we're missing that. I think we're missing that fan interaction. Of course, COVID sort of interrupted that, but it's not just autographs. It's, if I see you in public, why are you giving me the cold shoulder if I ask you for a picture? If, there's a disconnect there. The connection that was there years ago is gone. And I think that's a problem. I think fans, should be able to talk to players, should be able to meet players. I think that should be able to happen. And it's just, you can buy a signed baseball in the gift shop for $700 if you want to, but meeting these players should be more. You should have more opportunity to do that. You had the opportunity to meet a lot of players, Brother Francis. What do you think about that?
I think right. I think it. I had limitations where I could go, but pregame I could go down in the dugout and talk with Camp and Mike Lum. He and I became great buddies. Mike was the first Hawaiian to play baseball, Major League Baseball, but Lum was he was a middle of the road. He'll never go in the Hall of Fame, but he was one of those guys that wasn't afraid to sign his name and would talk to people. But Mike used to come out to the. In fact, I'll tell you a story when I got in trouble with the Braves. When we went on strike in was 82 or 80, 83. They went on strike in the middle of the year. So Mike says, "Hey, Bob," he called me by my right name then. He said, "How about me doing some magic out at the Pew and Brew?" So I don't know how they found out, but they found out, and we were packed because word got around Pew and Brew that Mike Lum's coming out and he's going to. So he starts doing magic and everything, and it's on Channel 5, it was on Channel 11, and it was on TBS 17, and so I get a call from Wayne Mitchell the next day. He said, "Bob, you can't do that." I said, "Do what, Wayne?" He said, "You can't be having players working for you and paying you while they're on strike." I said, "Wayne, I never even looked at it that way. I never even thought about it." He said, "Yeah, but look at all the TV people picked up on it. And, here's Mike Lum making." Good friends with Coxie. I keep him in my prayers.
Yeah, I hope he's doing well.
Well, who did I talk? I talked to Jay Cunningham last week, and he said not doing as well as they would like. So everybody, please keep Coxie in your prayers, because he was a gentleman and he did the game right, and it was worthwhile 3 minutes before he got tossed watching him.
Brother Francis, if you don't mind me asking, what years exactly did you work with the Braves?
80, 81, 82, 83. Those four, and halfway through the 85 year.
1980, 85, is that right?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Rick Camp?
Yeah.
Were you there that night?
No, I'd already been asked not to do it, and I didn't. And Rick Camp was another one who I became good friends with, and when I saw that on the news, I wouldn't have been there at 4:00 in the morning. As much as I love the game, I wouldn't have been there. But for Camp to do that, and Camp was really a great person. He had a big heart, and that's what unfortunately ended up getting him in trouble. He thought he was doing some good, and he really was involved with the wrong people. But I couldn't believe it. I saw it on TV the other night. They showed it, and I love seeing Campy run around, But number 37, once they tried to teach me to eat chewing tobacco, and I put it. They said, "Oh, come here, Bob. We got some Red Bull here. Put your hand in there, make a little ball, put it over by your cheek." Well, I didn't know how to keep the juice before I spit it out, and I swallowed two times. I got an ashtray, but Camp was laughing. Daryl Cheney was there that night when that happened, and it was just, I never smoked, so I never had. But if you don't do it, don't ever do it.
You mentioned Daryl Cheney. Daryl's a good friend of mine. You got any old Daryl Cheney stories by chance?
Daryl was he was a funny guy. I mean, when off the field, Daryl had a good sense of humor, and that
still does.
It still does. Okay, good. Well, remember the one time we were together, we called him and said hi to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he and Camp got along real well because they both had good sense of humor. But I thought Daryl did a good job in the press box and everything. And again, he was like a Lum. He was a middle of the road player, played hard, and didn't have all the tools of Bryce Harper or some of those guys had. But he was a good man for you. He still lives in Atlanta, and a good person. I had some. In fact, he was the one that told Camp. He said, "Let's get Brother Francis on chewing tobacco."
He's a good man. He does a lot of good work for the United Way there up in White County, up near Helen,
Mm-hmm.
and
Is that where?
he's just really. Yeah, I believe he's up in Helen, or if he's not in Helen, he's around Helen, but I think he's living in Helen. Just a really good guy, and he's the first one that if you got a charity, he's the first one to help you out doing it. He's just a good guy. Well, Brother Francis, if there's nothing else, do you got anything you want to say to Braves fans before we get out of here?
Don't worry. We're going to be okay. I mean, what are we? We've lost 8 and won 5, so we played 13 games. So we got what 148 more to play, or 40.
I did the math. We were 8% through the season as of today. So when people were worried about it, I calculated just how far we're through the season. We're only 8% through the season, so we still have another 92% to
go. I think everything will iron out. I'm glad Pablo is doing as well. I thought that was a bad pickup, but there again, that's why I'm sitting on this side of the fence. But,
yeah, I wasn't picking him to be on the bench this year, if I'm being quite honest.
I missed it. I really missed it. Culverson left, but I'd like to, come back once a week with you and talk baseball, and if you think it's good for you, I'd like for us to do it. If not, that's another thing. But I love the game, Tyler, and I love having a young guy like yourself. And you're the one that's going to help baseball get back to letting fans be more involved with the kids. I'm not, that one quick end. My last Niekro story for today. We're standing there one day at the top of the dugout, and I was standing next to him, and this kid gave him a 8x11 to sign. So Phil signed it, and the kid gave him another one. He signed it. Kid gave him another one. He signed it. And the kid handed him another. He said, "Wait a minute, time out. Where are you going to sell these?" And I'm not going to sell them. And I said to Phil, he's getting rich off of that name. And Phil didn't sign the last one for him. He gave it back to him. He signed.
You reminded me of something. You gave me another Niekro story.
Yeah.
When I met him for the first time, I was about 15. We went and saw him at a golf tournament. My buddy was his partner in that tournament. My best friend, you guys don't need to know this, but he's playing golf at Mercer. He was really good in high school. Anyway, he got the chance to go play in a celebrity golf tournament with Niekro, and he calls me. He goes, "Hey, come with me. Let's go play golf with Phil Niekro." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "By the way, who's Phil Niekro?" He didn't know who he was. So anyway, we go, and I take about 8 Pearl baseballs out there for him to sign because I knew how big of a deal this was. And they weren't all for me. 2 or 3 of them were for me, just to have. And I still got 1 or 2, but I've given them all away. And people were handing me baseballs to get Phil to sign this, please. So I took 8 of them. He signed every one of them. He walked me to his car because I had a Sharpie. I didn't know the ins and outs of autographing at the time. I had a Sharpie. He goes, "No. We're going to get a pen." And he went and got it, walked me all the way to his car, clear across the parking lot, got a pen and started signing. And after about the 4th or 5th one, he did exactly that. He said, "Now, these better not wind up on eBay." And I told him, "No, they're for my friends. A couple of them I put to Sam or to Nolan or to whoever." And, he got a kick out of it. But I said, "No. I said, I promise. And he signed every last one of them. So just a really kind man. I hate he's not here anymore. I got to see him.
Real quick interrupting. I hate the All-Stars game is not going to honor Hank and Phil now because they took the game out of Atlanta.
Well, they said it's still going to honor Hank. They're still planning on honoring Hank, but I don't think it's going to be the same. And I hate that they're not going to honor Phil Niekro, Bill Bartholomew, Don Sutton, because Hank might get honored, but the Braves lost a lot of faces this year. And I just think it's an absolute shame. But on that note, Brother Francis, I enjoyed it. Hopefully,
we'll stay in touch. And, as I used to say, in my little radio show I had many years ago. I'm rounding third and heading home, and God bless you, Tyler.
Good place to end it. Thank you, Brother Francis. Enjoyed it.
All right, buddy. We'll talk. Thanks.
Yes, sir. We will.